Creatine after 50 is not the same as creatine at 25, and that is exactly why your creatine supplementation is failing you right now. If you are a man over 50 trying to build muscle, prevent muscle loss, or just figure out how to take creatine properly, you have probably been following advice meant for someone half your age. Here is the truth about creatine for older adults that the fitness industry ignores. Your creatine dosage needs to account for age-related decline. Your creatine timing needs to work around medications. And the best creatine for men over 50 is not some fancy formula. It is creatine monohydrate combined with information nobody is sharing with you. Today, I am exposing the 3 worst creatine mistakes destroying your muscle building after 50, killing your creatine benefits, and making you think creatine side effects are worse than they actually are. This is the creatine guide for seniors and older adults that finally tells the truth. Before we dive into creatine and aging, drop the word active in the comments to get my free 30-day workout plan designed specifically for fitness over 50. Now let me show you how to take creatine the right way. The creatine gap catastrophe. Your body is running on empty and you do not even know it. Here is something that should genuinely concern you, and I have never heard another fitness creator mention it. Your body produces creatine through 2 enzymes called arginine glycine amidinotransferase and guanidinoacetate methyltransferase. I know those sound like words I made up, but stay with me because this matters. These enzymes live primarily in your kidneys, liver, and pancreas, and their activity measurably declines with age. A 2021 study published in the journal Amino Acids found that endogenous creatine synthesis decreases significantly in aging populations, creating what researchers are now calling a creatine gap. What is the creatine gap? It is the widening difference between what your body produces internally and what your muscles actually need to function optimally. When you were 25, your body produced roughly 1 to 2 grams of creatine daily, and combined with dietary intake from meat, you maintained adequate muscle stores without trying. Now, your production has dropped. Your meat consumption has likely decreased because your doctor mentioned cholesterol, or your digestive system simply does not handle red meat the way it used to, and your muscle creatine levels are potentially 30 to 40% below optimal. Here is the rare information that nobody discusses. If you follow a plant-based diet or have significantly reduced your meat intake after 50, your baseline muscle creatine stores are likely even lower. A 2020 study in the British Journal of Nutrition found that vegetarians and vegans have approximately 20 to 30% lower muscle creatine concentrations than omnivores. Combine reduced dietary intake with declining internal production and age-related changes in creatine transporter efficiency, and you have a perfect storm of creatine deficiency. This is why the first mistake is so devastating. Most people over 50 approach creatine supplementation as optional or experimental. They try it for 2 weeks, do not see dramatic changes, and conclude it does not work for them. But here is the reality. You are not supplementing from a position of adequacy. You are supplementing from a position of deficit. Your muscles are essentially creatine-starved, and that 2-week trial did not even come close to restoring optimal levels. The fix requires understanding that creatine is not a performance enhancer for you in the same way it is for a 20-year-old. For them, creatine takes adequate levels and pushes them to optimal. For you, creatine takes depleted levels and restores them to where they should have been all along. This means you need longer timelines to see results. Expect 6 to 8 weeks of consistent supplementation before judging effectiveness, not 2 weeks. Your depleted muscles need time to rebuild their creatine phosphate stores, and the cellular machinery that handles this process operates slower than it did decades ago. The absorption assassins. What is blocking your creatine from actually working? This mistake is specific to the over 50 population, and almost nobody talks about it. You could be taking the perfect dose of creatine at the perfect time and still getting minimal results because something is blocking absorption or competing for the same cellular resources. Let me start with medications because this is critical. If you take proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux, medications like omeprazole or esomeprazole, you have reduced stomach acid production. This matters because creatine absorption is affected by the acidic environment of your stomach. While creatine monohydrate is relatively stable, reduced stomach acid can slow dissolution and potentially decrease uptake. The solution is not to stop your medication. The solution is to take your creatine with food, specifically with a meal that contains protein and carbohydrates, which stimulates digestive processes and improves absorption. Here is another medication interaction that flew under my radar until I found a 2022 study in the Journal of Clinical Pharmacology. If you take metformin for blood sugar management, which approximately 25% of adults over 60 do, there may be competition for certain cellular transporters. Both metformin and creatine utilize transporter systems that can become saturated. The practical solution is timing separation. Take your creatine at least 2 hours apart from your metformin dose. Diuretics present another challenge. If you take any medication that increases urination, whether for blood pressure or other conditions, you are already fighting a hydration battle. Creatine requires adequate hydration to function properly and to avoid concentrating in ways that could stress your kidneys. If you are on diuretics and taking creatine, your water intake needs to increase substantially, potentially 12 to 14 glasses daily, depending on your medication dosage and climate. Now here is genuinely rare information. Vitamin D deficiency dramatically affects your muscles' response to creatine supplementation. A landmark 2019 study found that vitamin D receptors are present in muscle tissue and that adequate vitamin D levels are necessary for optimal creatine transporter expression. The creatine transporter, known as SLC6A8, is what actually pulls creatine into your muscle cells. If this transporter is not functioning optimally due to vitamin D deficiency, you can take all the creatine you want and your muscles will not absorb it efficiently. Why does this matter so much for the over 50 crowd? Because vitamin D deficiency affects approximately 42% of American adults, and rates are significantly higher in older populations due to reduced sun exposure, decreased skin synthesis efficiency, and lower dietary intake. Before you blame creatine for not working, get your vitamin D levels checked. If you are below 30 nanograms per milliliter, address that deficiency first or simultaneously. Many researchers now recommend that older adults supplementing with creatine should also ensure vitamin D intake of at least 2,000 to 4,000 international units daily. One more absorption factor that is genuinely cutting edge. Your gut microbiome affects creatine metabolism. A 2023 paper in Gut Microbes identified that certain bacterial species in your intestines can actually degrade creatine before it gets absorbed. The composition of your gut microbiome changes significantly with age, often in ways that reduce beneficial bacteria and increase problematic species. If you have taken multiple rounds of antibiotics over the years, have digestive issues, or eat a low-fiber diet, your gut may be sabotaging your creatine before it ever reaches your muscles. The practical solution is to support gut health through fiber intake, fermented foods, or a quality probiotic supplement alongside your creatine regimen. The satellite cell shut down. Why creatine without the right training is completely worthless. This mistake makes me genuinely frustrated because it is so common and so easily fixed. People over 50 take creatine and then continue doing exactly what they were doing before, which is usually walking, light cardio, or nothing at all. Then they wonder why the creatine is not working. Here is the biology that explains everything. Creatine does not build muscle directly. Creatine provides additional energy substrate for high-intensity muscle contractions. If you are not creating high-intensity muscle contractions, creatine has nothing to contribute to. It is like filling a sports car with premium fuel and then only using it to drive to the mailbox. The fuel is excellent. The application is wrong. But here is where it gets really interesting. And this is information I had to dig deep into research journals to find. Your muscles contain cells called satellite cells, which are essentially muscle stem cells. When you perform resistance training that creates sufficient mechanical tension, these satellite cells activate, multiply, and fuse with existing muscle fibers to repair and grow them. This is the fundamental mechanism of muscle building at any age. The problem? Satellite cell number and function decline significantly with age. A 2018 study in the journal Cell Reports found that older adults have fewer satellite cells and that these cells are less responsive to activation signals. This is one of the primary reasons muscle building becomes harder after 50. Here is the rare connection that ties this together. Research from McMaster University found that creatine supplementation combined with resistance training appears to enhance satellite cell activation in older adults. The proposed mechanism involves creatine's role in improving the cellular energy environment, which helps these aging satellite cells respond more effectively to training stimuli. But the key phrase is combined with resistance training. Without the training stimulus, there is no satellite cell activation for creatine to enhance. What does this mean practically? It means your creatine supplementation must be paired with resistance training that actually challenges your muscles. Not 5-pound dumbbells for 30 repetitions. Not resistance bands while watching television. Actual progressive resistance training where you are lifting weights heavy enough that the last 2 or 3 repetitions of each set feel genuinely difficult. Here is another layer that almost nobody mentions. After 50, you preferentially lose type 2 muscle fibers, which are your fast-twitch, power-generating fibers. These are the fibers that benefit most from creatine supplementation because they rely heavily on the phosphocreatine energy system. They are also the fibers responsible for explosive movements, preventing falls, and maintaining functional independence as you age. The tragic irony is that most exercise recommendations for older adults focus on low-intensity, endurance-type activities that primarily use type 1 muscle fibers. Walking is wonderful for cardiovascular health, but it does essentially nothing to preserve your type 2 fibers and provides no context for creatine to actually help you. You need exercises that require power and force production. Squats, deadlifts, presses, rows. Movements where you are lifting challenging weights for sets of 6 to 12 repetitions. A 2022 meta-analysis in the Journal of Cachexia, Sarcopenia, and Muscle found that the combination of creatine supplementation and progressive resistance training produced significantly greater improvements in lean mass and strength in older adults compared to either intervention alone. The effect was synergistic, meaning the combination was more powerful than you would expect from adding the individual effects together. Creatine without training is ineffective. Training without creatine is good. Training with creatine is substantially better. Let me summarize the 3 mistakes that are sabotaging your creatine results after 50. Mistake 1 is underestimating the creatine gap. Your body's production has declined, your dietary intake has likely decreased, and you are starting from a deficit that requires consistent, long-term supplementation to correct. This is not optional for you. This is restoration of what your body should have been producing all along. Mistake 2 is ignoring the absorption assassins. Medications, vitamin D deficiency, and gut health issues can all block creatine from reaching your muscles. Address these factors, or you are wasting your money and wondering why the supplement does not work. Mistake 3 is taking creatine without proper resistance training. Creatine provides energy for high-intensity muscle contractions. Without the training stimulus, there is nothing for creatine to enhance. Your aging satellite cells need both the mechanical signal from training and the energy support from creatine to function optimally. Here is your action plan. Start with 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate daily, no loading phase necessary. Take it with a meal containing protein and carbohydrates. Separate it from any medications by at least 2 hours. Get your vitamin D levels checked and supplement if necessary. Drink significantly more water than you think you need. And most importantly, pair your creatine with challenging resistance training at least 3 times per week. Drop the word active in the comments right now to get my free 30-day workout plan specifically designed for men above 50. This plan tells you exactly what exercises to do, how many sets and repetitions, and how to progress over time. It is the perfect companion to your new creatine protocol. Your muscles have been waiting for this. Your brain has been waiting for this. Stop making these mistakes and start getting the results you deserve. I will see you in the next video.